I want to pull up this article that Shane wrote. This is the beautiful ones in Universe 25. Rats, hope, and despair at the end of the world. This is about the Rat Utopia experiment. And there was the title of it. I think you nailed the title because it's the most interesting aspect to me. The beautiful ones. When I see what's going on now, it feels like, I think it's Kierkegaard's Clown, where he comes out and he warns everybody there's a fire, but they all laugh. And then he frantically says, no, there's a fire. And they laugh even harder. And, there's that idea. But then there's also, while all of this chaos is happening, you have what I view to be as a cult that just blindly believes the media. The media is just overtly lying all the time to make money. So you've basically got a sinking ship while people are stealing from the pockets of these people while they're distracting them. And it's just like, it's going down. And then meanwhile, there are these shows where people are glorified and glammed up and they're dancing. And I'm like, those are the beautiful ones. Mm-hmm. They're just grooming themselves and beautifying themselves as everything goes into chaos. But you break this down for us and explain to us the beautiful ones, and then we'll roll.
Yeah, through. John B. Calhoun is a scientist who started making these rat utopias, and he would take 4 males, 4 females, put them in a little he called universe, and let them exponentially grow. Those early experiments, they would just kind of like overcrowd. So they just like clump up here, clump up there, and he would stop it and have to start over. But Universe 25 was with mice, and that's when he gives them everything they need. All the food, all the water, all the medicine. There's no sickness. There's no hunger. The only thing that's lacking is space. And I think he did something with like powder food on one side and like nicer food in the middle, which kind of created kind of like a city and a country type vibe.
Interesting.
Yeah, but the beautiful ones would emerge in these universes when the population was about to hit equilibrium. So like Universe 25 could hold about 3,000 or so mice. And I think around 2,000 is when the beautiful ones would emerge. And they're these mice that just stopped caring about mating. They stopped caring about anything. They just kind of groomed themselves and became beautiful. They did nothing. And around this time is when it would start to collapse behavior. He would call it the behavioral sink. It would just like total insanity. The mothers would abandon their kids. There's like male mice mating with male mice, and there's they're attacking the kids, and it got ugly.
Hypercrowding too, right? Like they would all cluster in one area.
Yeah. I mean, at a certain point, it was just so much that he believed that when there was no space left, there was no feeling of like you had to do anything to survive. It was all you were doing, right? So you're getting attacked, you're hiding, and then the dominant mice would try to protect their their city of women.
So mice were getting attacked as well?
Yeah, there was violence.
Were people leaving the beautiful ones alone?
Yeah, I don't. They might have been attacked, but they were kind of like alone on the sides.
Were they being
just grooming
taking
themselves?
selfies?
Taking selfies.
At first, I thought it was behavioral sync, as in synchronization, but it's behavioral sync, like syncing.
We're going down.
Yeah.
So as I stated this in the intro, that maybe the inbreeding had something to do with the dissociative behaviors, since it all came from 8 mice. Maybe because I did have mice as a child, and one of them I saw some inbreeding and some deformities came out in the mice. Did he destroy the deformed child? Did he destroy mice?
I don't know about destroying them, but he would pluck the ones that survived the collapse and try to put them into new universes, and they were so traumatized they couldn't shake their violent behavior.
Maybe traumatized isn't the right word. Maybe programmed, developed into this reality.
Sure, true.
And so that spells very... There's a lot of people... I actually, in the piece, you talked to Brett Weinstein.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, they use lab mice. They don't use wild mice.
Right. For every experiment.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that means in the wild, the parents transfer some knowledge to their children. But, a good example is, and I love bringing up the chickens, is that we have 3 babies that were raised away from the parent chickens, and they don't know how to eat bugs. And I'm like, I don't know how to teach them how to eat stink bugs. The other babies,
learn.
They can.
You can learn.
Oh, right. I can eat it and show them. Yeah. But because they look to me like a parent, I put the stink bug in, and then they just look at me like, what's this? And they don't do it. The other chickens we had were raised around only other chickens. So they see a bug, they immediately go after it. That knowledge transfer didn't occur with these, and that's why I was reading. They say like you typically, if you want to have chickens, you want the chickens to be born by other chickens or like raised with them so that they can learn from them. These lab mice don't have that.
Yeah.
So that could be a major factor in why we are not going down that path. But
Yeah.
just to say one more thing, when I see these videos on YouTube, when I see that some of the most prominent and popular YouTubers are quite literally the beautiful ones, I'm like, yo, I think we're in the Rat Utopia. I think it's happening.
Like what I was saying earlier too, is I think it used to seem like the elites were the only ones who could become the beautiful ones. They would have the money, the space, but with things like TikTok and filters, people can just curate whatever best beautiful self they want to be online. Makeup tutorials, everything. Surgery, if you can do that, but everyone's the beautiful one now.
We're below replacement level reproduction. So it's like,
Right.
what's interesting is you did say he tried to have like a rural and city kind of vibe to certain, to how he did the universes. But people who live out in the middle of nowhere who are more self-sufficient probably aren't experiencing what the cities are experiencing. So there's economic constraints that make someone trapped in this space, right? People say, I'm in the city, I can't afford to leave. So that is what keeps them in that universe. Although they could physically walk out. They don't because they don't know how to survive otherwise. People live in rural areas, are more independent, and more likely to have the skills to survive on their own. Not absolutely, but more so. So they aren't experiencing the behavioral sink. The rural people tend to be conservative, and they're watching the city people, the beautiful ones, and the chaos and the fighting and the violence, and they're saying, stop, but you can't shake what you described as the trauma from them.
Yeah,
It'll
I think
persist.
the internet has collapsed space though. So like maybe a lot of the children in the rural like places, they are able to be the beautiful ones online. And also there's consequences of the cities and the policies that are affecting the country too. Gas prices are messing up farmers who have to, or truckers, like this is the first time in my life since I've been driving that I can travel the country and see the gas prices be the same. I could usually go south and expect it to be
different,
way lower.
Yeah.
It's the same everywhere. It's almost $4 by me.
Wow.
But it's like $3.15 around here, $3.30. Shocking.
I'm thinking that the behavioral sink world, the universe, is like the internet. So these people that are in the internet all the time are in that confined space, and it's driving them insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think overcrowding is technically the psychological effects of density. So that would make sense because it's a dimension where we've in like COVID, I think we've uploaded our identities onto the internet more than maybe ever, right? We Zoom to work. We see family for, doing, however we're doing COVID on Zoom. Like I know some people who haven't seen their family in a year.
Hey, me, I'm one of those.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So people, that's the real space now.
And this is one of the reasons I'm adamant. I'm like, we don't do Zoom or Skype stuff. Like we do in-person shows, and I get a lot of really prominent people who are like, "Can't you just do it for me?" And I'm like, "Sorry, man." It's funny because when we try inviting these leftists, they're like, "Tim won't do remote because he's a coward." I'm like, if you had any idea the people I rejected and how famous and big because I won't do remote stuff, yeah, that's just not true. But I'm not gonna air anybody's business. We've had a few people. Many of them aren't in the U.S. They can't even travel here anymore. So, I don't want to. I don't want to name anybody because people might be like, "Yo, don't drag me into anything." But there's a lot of people of like medium followings to large followings. Some of them are like moderates. Some are very conservative. Some are prominent internationally. They don't want to do it.
It's this. There's something very visceral about being in close proximity with someone in communication, body language. You can hear them vibrating. I mean, I know it's funny to think of, but it's very low frequency. Yeah. You can hear people vibrating, whether you realize it or not. You can smell them. It's amazing.
You don't feel me vibrating right now?
I feel you vibrating.
Thank you. I thought somebody.
Please take your foot
Thank
off
you.
my leg.
Your quartz pyramid right there. But
no, I was an adjunct
Quadramid,
professor for like 10 years, and in person is the best. I would sit just like this with a room of students, and we would write, and you could hear like if someone was reading something they just wrote, and it was clicking with everybody. The silence, you could hear it, you could feel the silence, right? So when COVID kicks us all home, we're on Zoom. That's gone. There's no there's no interacting anymore at all. Like they didn't feel as comfortable.
And I think it has to do with analog sound and digital sound. With digital sound, you can't have a 1 and a 1 active. Everything else has to be at 0 for 1 to translate. But with analog, we can put 1 and 1 together and have these weird harmonies. So that's in person. We have analog, but the digital transformation alters
I've done some stuff Ben Shapiro had hit me up before, and he was like, "Do you want to do the show?" And I was like, "That'd be great." And we did it remote, and it was actually really hard because I had to record it and then take the memory card and then have it driven to a place to upload because the internet is not good enough. At the time, we had to install the internet lines here. It was like it was a lot of construction work, and I was like, it was cool to talk to Ben. He's a cool dude, but it just really felt like I would talk and then pause, and then he would talk and then pause. And you don't get those moments where, like, out of nowhere, Ian might just blurt out the vibrations of the universe. And, like, those are human moments that make something feel alive.
Oh, geez, eye contact. You can't make eye contact online at all yet. Mm-hmm. Maybe if they put cameras in the middle of the screen, behind the screen, and then you might feel like you're making eye contact.
That's a good idea, actually.
It's weird,
though.
But it might block.
And we should also use sapphire for the screens, I think. Sapphire.
Wait, how?
I think dude, have you seen a star sapphire?
Yeah.
And then you look through a lens that's pointed at the sun and you see that same star pattern. I think that if you use sapphire lens, that it might help in high brightness.
That would cost
Sounds
a lot.
beautiful.
Idea.
It does sound beautiful.
I believe you.
We'll experiment.
I think people just feel a lot of, at least my students, because they're much younger, right? They do feel more comfortable online, but they were comfortable to be quiet, right? Like, because they're usually just very quiet online, but their real world was also taking over their internet space. So we'd be in class technically on Zoom, but I would have a kid at like a McDonald's drive-through, like just ordering food. I'd be like,
Wow.
hey, what's going on?
Have you seen that viral video where the kid uses a green screen or whatever? And so it's like he was out with his friends or something. I can't remember what it was. But he was trying to use like a background, and the teacher was like, "I can tell I'm doing it."
So you were
Ferris Bueller of Zoom.
Yeah.
You were a teacher in classrooms, and then you were there for the transition into the COVID Zoom. What was that like?
I remember, so it was two different schools. One was a community college and one was a private school, and it was interesting to see like kids who came from money in a private school and kids from the community in the community college. But for the most part, they felt like it was the end times, and I kept telling them it's not.
Wow.
This is before we locked down in New York, all that stuff. I was like, it's gonna be fine. And I told the whole spiel of my grandfather and all that stuff. And they're like, okay, good. And then a week later, we were kicked off back to Zoom, and I'm terrible with computers, so I'm like, just clicking away trying to make it work. But I thought it was horrible. I hate teaching on Zoom, and it was, you just lost that human aspect. And I think, especially when you're trying to create things, like it was creative writing classes.
You can't do it, man. It's not possible.
Didn't work. Because we have to do workshops, and kids have to like look at you in the face and be like, I like this part, but this part not so good. You could do this and that. And on Zoom, you're just Brady bunching, around, and it doesn't feel right. So I think it's horrible. But then kids got really comfortable with doing it. And I think a lot of people like it now.
The lack of resistance. It's easier because it's more comfortable, but comfort is not the way to get stronger.
Right.
No. Often you need discomfort.
This is
the only way.
This is unfortunately still a net positive.
Yeah.
Kids are more likely to younger people are more likely to be at home now. Their parents are more likely to spend time with them, and their parents are more likely to know what they're being taught in schools. So remote learning has not been a bad thing, in my opinion, other than it's better for the kids to be in person. But when the parents started getting wind of what the teachers were saying, and there was that viral video where the one teacher was like, the parents can't find out what we're telling their children, it'll be bad for us and what we're trying to do.
Yep.
All of a sudden the parents were like, we can hear you. We can see this stuff.
Yeah, that was
Get away
wild.
from my children.
I mentioned this to you earlier. I was talking with Ben Stewart about technology and the advancement. It's like every technology is both good and bad. Everything is a variance on some level, and we have to kind of locate where the badness is and where the goodness is.
I agree. Yeah, like dynamite.
Yeah.
They called Alfred Nobel the Merchant of Death. He saw his obituary accidentally printed and then freaked out. That's what they're calling me. And I guess the idea for dynamite was like easier mining. You could plant the explosive, leave, and then no one would boom, and then it falls down. But they were like, you made a weapon. The technology wasn't meant to be evil or destructive in the sense that it would hurt people. It was meant to make things safer and easier, but it was a powerful weapon. So I always tell people, no matter what you do, you will help someone and you will hurt someone. And I don't mean to be completely absolute, like, sure, like you could jump and click your heels and it affects nothing or nobody. In fact, it might make someone happy. But I'm talking about, your political aim. When you're like, I believe in universal health care, and so we're going to vote for this. And then there's some, person whose taxes go up because of it. Now their budget's disrupted and some retiree is being hurt by it. There's no neutral action. Yeah. Like, you can try to do better, and we can try and err on the side of maximizing good, but you'll ultimately always hurt someone. And I think this is an important thing to mention because You may one day be the nicest person in the universe who saved 1 billion babies' lives, and then one day one dude shows up and he's just like, you did this to me. And I started thinking about this. You know why? The Sixth Sense.
The movie.
Bruce Willis's character wins that
I like
award. He wins an award for his amazing work with child psychology. And then one day there's some dude in his underwear like, you lied to me, and then shoots him. And so here's a guy who was doing as good as he could, but he hurt that kid. And so, I mean, that's not a perfect example, because what I'm talking about is kind of like a butterfly effect thing as well. You know, you find a good parking space. Your friend is like, hey, can you find me a parking space? I'm going to be late. So you do. And then someone else pulls up and they're like, he just took the space I needed. You know, it's a better example might be the law of equivalent exchange. You know, Full Metal Alchemist. You have to get something to give something to get something. And that means some people will be on the short end of the stick.
Yeah, I remember there was a book I read. I don't remember what book it was, a long time ago, where the guy was wishing for $1 million. He kept wishing for money, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, this cube gives me every time I wish for money, it appears in my room." But it was disappearing from somewhere else in the universe.
Well, that's like the monkey's paw story, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know the monkey's paw,
I
obviously.
don't think I do.
You know the monkey's paw?
How do you
You're the
know?
paranormal.
We're going there.
invertebrate- The monkey's
so
paw
crazy.
is you get it's the paw, and you wish on it, and then the finger curls, but it twists your wish. So the best example is, you know, someone finds the paw and it says it's got 3 wishes, and they go, I wish for $1 million, and the finger curls, and then their phone rings, and they're like, is this Mr. Johnson? It's like, it is. I have $1 million for you. And they go, oh, and he goes, because your father died and his
life
insurance is
insurance,
paying out. And they
yeah.
go, no. So you get the money, but you have
Yeah.
to give something in exchange.
Yeah.
And typically,
Wow.
be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. I think there's a balance like that in a lot of things. You know, I noticed that just in losing people. You know, I know a few people, and myself included, who lost a few dear ones a few years ago, and then there's kids all of a sudden. Like, life just seems to balance out. You know, you lose, and then there's kids. That's not as scary as a monkey's paw, though.
The social media
No.
is scary,
Way better.
though. Like, it is we've created, the monkey's paw gave us this mass communication, social media, and I'm terrified about the badness of it. Like, I want to focus on,
You know,
I like the
I'll be
goodness.
honest. I believe a good portion of the world's problems would end overnight if communications around the world were shut down for like 1 week.
Yeah, we're just
Yes.
talking about the Earth started to heal during COVID. I don't know if there's if that's actually real, but like the what was it, the magnetosphere, or like the ozone opened up and then it sealed up again.
Well, yeah, I was saying the part where people were home and not commuting as much. They said the Earth was not vibrating as much as it used to.
Vibrating.
Yeah.
If we shut, if not if we shut down, but if it's just for whatever reason, all social media, all television shows, all information exchange, except for human contact, was suspended for a week, I believe all of this would all the crisis would probably stop.
When we were in Chicago, I was living with my roommate Eric Paskey, and the electricity went out, and I was like, "What do we do?" He was like, "I don't know." I was like, "Want to make soup?"
Hang
So we
out.
just
Yeah.
heated up some
Hang
soup and
out.
sat and talked.
Yeah.
Right?
And lit a candle.
But think about this. We had Yossi Gestetner on. He's Jewish, and he talks about the Sabbath and how they don't go on the computers. They just hang out with family and talk. And that has been stripped away from our society for the most
It's
part.
why shows like this are so popular. That's
Because-
why I loved
Yeah.
Rogan's for so long. It's just watching two guys hang out and talk. I felt like I was there with them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like getting that time where you're just hanging out with friends and listening. And man, we used to do that when we were kids, and we would talk about crazy stuff. I'd be hanging out at my friend's house playing Knights of the Old Republic. They'd be stoned off their asses, and they'd be like, "Dude, what if like the universe, it's like actually like only 5 dimensions, but we can't tell?" And it's like just saying weird stuff.
I thought I was.
I think that's true, though.
Yeah, probably on some level. Yeah. I would imagine that the entire universe as we know it is falling at light speed towards a brick wall, but we wouldn't know because it's all falling at the same rate. So it's relative. It just looks like it's sitting still to us.
And we
Yeah.
all end. Yep.
Yeah, there's 4 dimensions we're moving through, or there's 4 dimensions we're moving through, and only 3 we can control.
Yes.
And the 4th dimension, time, is like we're in free fall.
Yep.
You can't. So imagine imagine you fall off the Grand Canyon. You're just falling, or you fall off a plane. And you're just falling towards the Earth. You can move in 2 dimensions, up,
couple,
down, left,
yeah.
right, but you're going down, and then eventually you're headed towards that. So that's like time. You can't turn around and go back unless you have a jetpack or
not
something,
yet.
which you don't.
Yeah.
And you die at
But
the
maybe,
end.
yeah.
We
and
can
you
kind of
die-
with
and you die
video.
at the end.
We kind of reference the past with video. It's a sort of time travel where you can watch past events, but we're not quite 5 senses of past experience yet. That might come though. But is it really time travel if you just think you're seeing it?
It depends. you know, if we've uploaded our identities into the internet and that's what's real, that's what's real. Right?
You know, it'd be crazy. So we've used all the social media, and they talk about how we're programming this great AI with all of the stuff we do. So when you like reCAPTCHA, for instance, biggest scam on the planet. So you try to log into a website and it says to prove you're human, please click these buttons and like prove this. The computers already know, for the most part. What they're doing is they're having you teach the computer what certain things are. So here's how it works. They say, please click all the streetlights in this photo, and then you do. The issue is the actual CAPTCHA is your mouse movements. They know if you're a human or a bot based on how the mouse is moving on the screen. Oh. So they don't need you to actually do this labor to train an AI. Here's a good sci-fi novel. One day, you're online and all of a sudden you see a post on your own Twitter that you didn't make. And you're like, whoa, I didn't post that. Someone must have hacked my account. And then you can't log in. And then you look at your Facebook and your YouTube, and there's a video on YouTube of you talking, and you're like, I didn't record this video. And what's actually happened is that everything about your personality, the way you speak, the way you think, the ideas you have, your birthday, was encoded into the AI, and then a digital version of you was created and begins propagating content based off of a fictional, like an AI version of you. And then you like look at your phone and you're like, what is it? You get a phone call and you're like, it's from me. And you answer it and it's like, look at me. I am Tim now. And you're like, no, this can't be real. And then all of a sudden, like almost like body snatchers or zombies, artificial intelligence versions of people's personalities emerge.
It's going to go like,
take over.
I'm the Tim you want. And it'll be coded to give that person a tailored Tim experience. So based on what they think you want, that AI is going to say, oh, it's going to be
Then
creepy,
one day,
dude.
then one day you're like, then you get the call and you're like, this can't be. And then you drop your phone and then you're like, you run outside and you're like, your phone's not working anymore because and then all of a sudden you open your door and there's this silver looking robot structure that just grabs you by the throat, and then from the fingertips starts turning into looking like you. And then it's like, I am the perfect version of you.
Yes, awesome.
And then all of a sudden, all over all these cities, there's just all these robots, these digital versions taking over. And then, like when we talked about the transport problem, do you die when the transporter teleports you from one place to another because it breaks down your body and reconfigures somewhere else? The entire planet is overwritten by AI, artificial versions of the people who are using the computers, but all of them just act like they're you. Your soul is gone, your existence is gone, but humanity stays the same except for the robots now.
When it comes to the transporter problem, I think you don't die. Because what I imagine what we are right now, we think of ourselves as solid. But what seems like is happening, all these things called spinners, subatomic spinning momentum things are coming together to form atoms, which bond, and then so we're appearing in place due to the spin of this area. If that spin is in a different area, it appears in place over here. It's appearing in place constantly. So if you appear here and now you appear here, it's still you appearing. I would imagine that the soul like magnetically locks onto your formation of body.
Don't we shed our cells like every 7 years? So
Yeah.
isn't transporting just like an accelerated process of that? So if we're still alive
Ship
after
of
7
Theseus.
years. Yeah.
But we don't shed our souls?
No?
I don't know.
Ooh.
I wonder if the
Maybe
soul's
we
like
do.
magnetically attached to your form.
Bro, we were talking about, weren't we talking about this with Alex Jones and Michael Malice? Where like you take DMT and then we're basically just meat puppets for the machine elves or something. So like your soul is not even in this reality. These are just, meat vessels we walk around in. And then when you die, you just snap through the veil and you're a machine elf or something. I don't know.
I can feel Seamus's soul right now. I feel bad that he's not. I feel like he should be in the room because he's like, no, you guys, that's not it. This is not the way.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.